to the regular meeting of the Palm Springs International Airport Commission. First, has the agenda been posted, Mr. Rick?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's been posted according to your procedures.
Yes, and could we have the roll call, please, Marjorie?
Yes, Gazelle.
Here.
Bosworth. Callahan.
Here.
Shield.
Here.
Drysky's excused. Duncan.
Here.
Elsner.
Here.
Frieden.
Here.
Luders.
Here.
Lovett is excused. Pepper.
Present.
Miller.
Present.
Sisson. Here. Sherman.
Here.
Spicer.
Here.
Bucksbaum.
Here.
And Tyler.
Here.
The roll's been called.
Thank you, Marjorie. The approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. Are there any comments?
Move approval.
Move approval. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those who oppose? Passes. Public comments. This is the period in which the public can comment anything dealing with the airport. And we have a commenter of first degree. I'd like to introduce David Reddy, City Manager, who will talk to us. David and I and a group of people have worked very hard on this project, and I'm very pleased.
Thank you, Chuck. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment just to talk to you a moment about the new airport director that I've asked to join us. As you saw in the paper this morning, it was announced. Mr. Walsh comes to us, as you see, from San Francisco. Before that, he was in Pittsburgh. And the paper, as notes, he comes with quite a few credentials, not the least of which he holds the AAE, which was important, Masters in Aeronautical Science, and so forth. The references for this gentleman were outstanding and somewhat overwhelming. And I think as time goes by, you'll see that he was a very good choice. Now, I just want to let you know, I had 3 goals in mind to make this selection. One was to make sure that this individual, man or woman, would be able to further and promote and continue our relationship with the FAA. The second one was to continue the path we're on for developing air service. And the third one was to make sure that this individual would have the philosophy that we're all coming to realize is that the Down Valley cities are our partners, and this is an airport for the entire region. And to be able to work with that entire kind of intergovernmental, valley-wide kind of philosophy. And I feel that he meets all 3 of those. Now, I would like to thank Chuck. I asked Chuck to join me on the interviews, and I also asked the CVA if they would have someone join us, and they elected to send Ms. Councilwoman Jean Benson of Palm Desert. You know, she's been very involved in the airport over the years. And they joined myself and Al Smoot and Assistant City Manager Troy Bootsloff, and we interviewed 5 candidates. Mr. Walsh will begin sometime around mid-February. He is coming here one time prior to deal with housing and things of that nature, and Chuck has agreed to, we're going to sit down and meet with him and talk about issues that the airport has, and we'll get that first sit-down discussion with him. Finally, I would just like to note that we had 2 internal candidates, as you know, and I would like to thank them for their participation. And I also thank them for being willing to work as a team. I have very strong expectations that the senior management here and with the new airport director will be a very good team to achieve, in essence, what has come to be your objectives. And final note, on a personal level, I guess I just need to make sure that I'm always in sync with what your guys are doing. And I try to do that. The chairman keeps us very well informed. But if that ever seems not to be the case, please, you're going to call me over here, tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, and I'm very open to that. So with that, thank you very much. I think you'll be pleased with the selection and look forward to working with you in the future. Okay?
Thank you, David.
Thanks, everyone.
I would just second that. I think David was chosen very well. It was very difficult. It was difficult to do the interviews, and I'm sure it's difficult to go through, but to do it 5 times was quite a stress.
Did you warn Mr. Walsh he's got to put up with this cantankerous route?
I said there are some downsides. And, he's, I think you'll find him to be very affable. I think you'll find him to be very thoughtful and obviously very bright. And I think he brings a lot of credentials that he and Barry can share and really make a team And I'm very pleased that he is going to be our new director.
And I've asked Barry to be the interim in the meantime, and we will adjust his pay accordingly. And thank you for taking on that responsibility, Barry. Can I answer any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what was his position at San Francisco Airport?
He was the assistant, the deputy, the assistant, the names.
Number 2.
Number 2. There you go.
In charge of
He was
the
more
wetlands, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was more on the planning environmental side. William?
We're gonna be, Eli Pond will be a pretty big project for us.
Now, William, I think you gotta give the guy a chance. Do we need to talk about Al Smoot when he came here? This guy has credentials that make Al Smoot look like he had no idea what he was doing.
Guess I don't like the insinuation that we haven't been doing. I've come from Palm Desert. Our city is very enthusiastic about the airport, about me. I meet with them once a month.
And that's why I had Gene on there.
That, right,
Your
but
councilwoman.
in the criteria you insinuated, I read it, you insinuated we weren't doing enough with the cities.
We,
And we are.
now I'm not saying you as the board, now you
I'm
know.
talking about
Now,
we as
William,
the airport.
we is the city.
I see.
Now, you know, for a long time, the city has been accused of, it's our airport, we're parochial, we don't want to share, we don't care what you say. Now, that was very important for me to change that perception. And that's why I asked Gene and Chuck to be a part of this. And so, what I'm saying is that the city is on board with your philosophy. That's what I'm saying. So the insinuation wasn't for you, William, the insinuation was the city. And I'm working with you, and council understands that we want that insinuation and idea not to be a thing of the past. So William, I'm on your side. Go Palm Desert.
Thank you.
Okay?
Can you change Governor Schwarzenegger then? Because he said Palm Springs, the big meeting that they had was bipartisan, and it was really in Rancho Mirage.
Well, there you go.
They never can get it.
Well, that's the Palm Springs Valley.
That's the greater resorts city of. All right, thank you.
David, just a question. We were all contacted by the search firm. How involved were they? Did they help your process in narrowing candidates, or to what degree were they involved and are helpful?
Yes, you got good value for the dollars that you spent. Thank you.
I wasn't asking about the economics of it.
But the importance was, I saw this as such an important decision, probably one of the most important decisions I would make as city manager. I felt it important to bring them in, and we brought them in because they had a significant experience in airport director searches. And they were very helpful. They had a list, the universe of about 52, I believe.
That's right, it was quite large.
They narrowed it down to 8. They had some very good contacts in the airport industry and got us some stars. And then I have to tell you, your inside candidates matched up very well against those stars. So the short answer is they were very helpful.
And they guided us through the interview process by preparing booklets on each person and a series of questions, which made it a lot easier. I think we would have fumbled a lot more if we'd not had that on-hands guidance that day.
And the final piece was, it was important for me to demonstrate to you as the board and the city council that we were out there to find a professional candidate. We took it very seriously, and we did all the due diligence of any professional search that we all could point to this person and say we're proud. And again, your internal candidates stood up very well on that whole professional search.
That's exactly right.
And William, look forward to working with you, buddy. Thank you. All right.
Unfortunately, I called this 3 months ago.
I just have one more
Yes,
question. How long had Mr. is it Walsh,
Yes,
been the number 2 guy at San Francisco Airport?
I think since 2000. Was it 2000?
Yeah, it's been 43 or 4 years. And before that, he was something else there too. He got promoted.
Wasn't Bill Walsh. Close to the 49ers.
Yeah.
I got it, yes. You're right.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Part-time job.
Introductions, Mr. Berry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to introduce our new GO for Signature Flight Support, Mr. Jeff Magnus. And stand up here, Jeff. Give us a little bit about your background.
I'm coming from Wisconsin. I own my own fixed base operations in Wisconsin. I sold them about 1.5 years ago. And have hooked up with Signature as of December 7th. Be moving my family next week and be full-time the following week. But I'm here through Friday. And look forward to it. It's a beautiful community and look forward to working with all of you.
Well,
You won't be able to shovel snow here, though. Is that gonna be a
My
problem?
wife's a native Southern Californian and she's ready. We're moving back.
Well, there is hope. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other introductions? We are still on public comments. I guess, does anybody else have a comment pertinent to the airport? If not, we will move on to business items, please. Air Service Advertising Program.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, before I let Richard give the report, I just wanted to express how important this is and that we continue along with this program as we did last year, and I think it's quite evident if you look at your news release in terms of our busiest year in November in history. And with that, I'll let Richard give the details of the report.
Good morning and thank you. The Air Service Advertising Program is something that I think the marketing subcommittee is owed a big thank you. They met with me multiple different times on many different facets of the program as we put this together. The advertising program is merely one part of the airport's overall marketing program, part of which is the air service development and other facets. But in doing the advertising last year for the first time in many years with a very focused campaign and very focused approach to support all the new summer service that we had, we then in turn saw increases in enplaned passengers and total passengers anywhere from 14 to 20% during the time in which the booking curve would have been applied towards the advertising that the airport did. Now, obviously, to relate those directly and try and, draw straws and see what was related to what is very difficult to do. But in terms of supporting the overall air service that's here and trying to increase an awareness throughout the valley about the service that's here, it played a critical role in doing such last summer. So now as we look to the budget year for this year, we did work to put in significant dollars into the marketing program and advertising program, and for this year we looked to start the program in January. We're probably going to slip a couple of weeks on that and start at the end of January, but that is to increase the overall awareness of the air service that's available here. We still have about a 67% leakage rate going out of the valley. Granted, some of that stuff, an international flight here and there out of LAX, or somebody choosing to use a particular low-cost carrier at Ontario, those kinds of issues we can't directly address, but we can certainly address those individuals who just don't have that full, complete understanding of all the air service that's here and the destinations that we can get them to. In doing such and putting together this overall program for this year, the things that we looked at, as the report indicated, is to increase television reach. Last year, we only had enough money in the budget to use one television station based on their meetings with us and their packages that they put together, and last year we chose KMIR Television. Again, this year, they are one of the top ones that we want to use, but we added KESQ to the list to overall increase the overall reach of the consumer that we're going to make aware of the service that's here. With the radio and the 7 stations that are garnered here, it is R&R Radio, again, that the subcommittee and myself are recommending we go with. There was one other radio program format that did bid into the process and want to be part of it. That was Morris Media. They did not bring to the table the same volume and quantity of stations and viewership and gross impressions within their bid that R&R Radio did. One little side note to the radio thing. I'm sure all of you are aware of the Travel Tuesday segment that we perform on Tuesday mornings at 6 a.m. on KMIR television. Inside of R&R Radio's proposal this year, they have offered us free airtime on their morning show 1 day a week to increase awareness throughout the valley and take phone calls live on the air and talk about the air service that's here, which I think is a real positive element, that being that they want to do it on a public service basis. I think that's a real key ingredient to things. The radio will get us the frequency, that constant overall play to get us the frequency that we want to coincide with the television spots. Now, the billboard campaign that will start up this year is meant to focus on the drive market as they're headed to that other airport or as they're headed home from the other airport. And it is meant to send that quick message across to them that they could have already been on the plane or they could have already been home had they chosen Palm Springs International Airport. We are not definite on the exact terms that we will use on the billboard. We are working with Mr. Frank Jones, who all of you know, with some of his expertise and background within the billboard industry. He's working with us. We've collected several different little tidbits that we might want to consider for the billboards. The final decision on that will be in the next 2 weeks. As far as billboards are concerned, some of you might look at the cost here and think $24,000. That's the going rate for billboards. They're not cheap, and we have not gone after the smaller 10 by 20 type billboard. We've gone after the full 15 by 36, the large billboard that's lighted at night, that does not have any back filler behind it. Like you see some of the billboards when you drive I-10 and they've got the Trump 29 letters sticking up behind it and everything else with the extensions. So in our proposal with Lamar Corporation, we have requested that anything that might impede our message be blocked with an extender. So we have really gone after this to format the billboard program in a manner that it is very eye-catching. It's right there. We've driven the route on I-10 to identify 4 billboards that we feel that we want. It turns out that 2 of those are under current contract. We're currently negotiating with Lamar to see if we can get into those contracts and preempt those contracts on the goal that will be a long-term on the billboard. The print with the Desert Sun, it's indicated in here that it's for specific messaging. Last year we worked with the Desert Sun on several different ad components that talked about all the airlines that are here. And in overall discussions with the marketing subcommittee, when you look at all that we had already focused on with television, with radio, with billboards, it became apparent that the best thing to do with the Desert Sun was to utilize their services for very focused messaging when we felt it was appropriate to put something in there that promoted a particular flight that we want to promote or a particular time of year rather than just running an ongoing ad within the paper. We felt that our money would be better spent to focus it for specific messages. The overall program cost of $109,000 is only a phase of the approach. It would get us through this budget year, and then we would look to, of course, in next budget year, have monies available to immediately restart the program at the back end of this with new funding and continue it on forward to continue the messaging through and reevaluate the program.
I move adoption.
Well, second.
Any discussion? Yes, Ken?
I lived in Orange County for many years, and there was always signs, if you bought an XYZ, you'd be home now. I could just see a billboard on I-10 East coming from Ontario or something. If you flew directly from Palm Springs, you'd be there by now, or something like that. So is that what you're talking about?
That is what we're talking about. We're just trying to get the final wording then, because we want to keep the message very short. I'm sure all of you have seen billboards in which you're driving along and you can't read it because they've got 20 words on the billboard and you don't even have time to figure out what their message was. So we are trying to keep it very concrete, finite, and right to the point.
How about dummies fly from Ontario?
How about one going west saying, heavy traffic ahead?
Or if you lived in Palm Desert, you'd almost be home.
Yeah. Robert?
Under the entry radio in the middle there, you got 7 stations, 3 million GIs. I know what a lot of definitions for GIs are, but what's that one?
What definition for GI would you like to hear this morning?
Yes, no, and decimal.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind.
It's a gross impression, which is the number of times it is impressed upon the public. And so it's the,
Well,
But the messages aren't all gross.
Yeah, the message will not be gross.
Secondly, this 109,000 at the bottom, it says disproportionate. What percentage of our total advertising budget is that?
25%.
25%. Thirdly, I'm not a fan of billboards. I hate to see us spending money to proliferate I think are abominations. That's just a personal
But
opinion.
the other end of that, Robert, is that they're there and they're not coming down. The people who own them aren't taking them down, so we might as well.
We got a chainsaw.
Well, that's true. Send you guys out in the middle of the night with masks.
Are you on the board of the Sierra Club?
No, I've been accused of a lot of things, but that's not one of them.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, billboards are probably the best traffic generators. That's what we're really after here, from a real estate point of view. However, the question I had about Ontario, do we have a competitive disadvantage with regard to pricing of flights out of here versus Ontario? And is it really significant, or is that the perception?
It is a perception and a reality. It depends on the point in time. I will give you a quick example. If you chose to fly out, for example, to Denver, out of Ontario, there are significantly more seats available from a capacity standpoint out of Ontario. Out of Palm Springs, there are a finite number of seats available, but we can get you there. If you are planning ahead and you plan your trip, say 45 days in advance, and you book at both and look at both, you will find a difference ranging anywhere from $10 to maybe $40 for the ticket. If you wait until 15 days before you need to travel or 10 days before, there is a significant greater difference in the ticket price, and that is because they have far more capacity. When the jet goes out of here, typically to Denver, specifically the morning departures, it's full. So the airline, let's say if it had one seat left on it, they're not going to sell that seat for $210 anymore. They're going to sell it for a lot more than that. However, the jets that go out of Ontario, some of those morning departures are 50% full. The ticket price is still going to be relatively low compared to what it is here, simply because it's supply and demand. You almost might say they have too much supply at Ontario. But the reason they have the supply there is the overall gross population that surrounds that airport. And from a competitive standpoint, they have more pure flights put in there just because the airline wants to have the flight to compete with another carrier.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
We
typically don't do this.
I'm
but
sorry.
that's okay.
George Zander, and I'm from Palm Springs, and I'm a travel agent. And you may know this already, but in my dealings with the consumer, the cost of getting to Ontario, either in finding a friend or paying the van or renting a car or parking, more often than not offset the price of the $40 or even $100.
Absolutely, I
that
agree
you
with
say.
you
So that
wholeheartedly.
may be a thought inherent in how you buzz that advertising. Plus, a lot of our population is over 60, and it's difficult for them to get to Ontario. So those two.
No, I think that's
might
right.
doing that.
Bill and I resent that.
I just arrived there myself. So far, I can get to Ontario, but of course I wouldn't.
The reality is, if you're going to the East Coast, you can probably get a competitive price anytime. But it's on the West Coast where the carriers sort of have control of the market. We don't see as good a price.
And one element you might not all be aware of, if you're going to Chicago, you will not be flying out of Ontario International Airport. They no longer have flights to Chicago, and we do. So, I mean, the tide is turning slowly but surely in terms of the quality and quantity of service that this valley has offered to it.
I agree, and I think it's only going to get better. I mean, that's the reality.
Well, not to beat this to death, but we also have the convenience factor. I mean, you don't have to make the drive and park there are a lot of advantages that can well offset any price difference.
All right, all those in favor of the program? Okay, since we had one, I have to have two.
Well, I have to humbly beg your apology. I'm Hank Hohenstein from Desert Hot Springs, and last night I was appointed to this body.
Oh, well, welcome. You should be sitting here then.
Well,
We'll get the formalities out of the way. What's your name?
I'm Hank Hohenstein.
Hank, all right.
Yes.
Well,
I was just curious, in your mix here, had you considered public access channels at all? Certainly, you might have a readership or impressions issue there, but certainly you've got a price advantage.
We looked at a number of different elements as well as cable television networks all the way down through, and we don't have a huge endless pot of money to spend, and we wanted to get the biggest bang for the buck spent at this point in time, but we did evaluate all things going down the list, and we've kind of ranked where we want to position ourselves for now, and right now it's here. In the future, it may in fact delve into other areas as we continue forward.
Okay, thank you.
and Hank, one of the things about the public service access channel is that you've got to produce the program. And you've got to pretty much put it together and have it look good. And I don't think we felt we were terribly capable of doing that on the spur of the moment. So it's, but I think it'll have its moment. I don't think it's something that should be ruled out at all.
Well, there have been periodic interviews.
Yeah, I've seen some faces on there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
Many of you know my wife is very ill, so I decided to fly 12 of her family in for the holidays. But the one thing I've made them do is to fly to Palm Desert. And the second thing...
What a landing it was.
Right, they bailed out on the where I had to hear. But the second thing, since I was paying for it, I said, don't tell me the difference.
Yeah, you just didn't want to know. Go away. All right. Good question. It's been called for. All those in favor? Aye. Those who oppose, passes unanimously.
Chuck, point of order.
Sure.
We do have, Hank Hohenstein is a newly elected city councilman in Desert Hot Springs, whom I've known a long time and worked with in the past. Good morning, Hank. And it's generally our tradition that we have new members of this council introduce themselves. So I just suggest an appropriate time in your agenda that you might address that.
At the end of the before updates, we'll do that. Hank, you can just talk away and let us hear all about it.
Usually about 45 minutes.
Yeah, but no more.
45 seconds.
There's a seat open there.
Yeah, Hank, come on up. You feel welcome to sit here, please. This is, I mean, you'll have to deal with sitting next to Robert and John, but other than that, it'll be a fun experience.
He's a down valley guy.
All right, second item, the Alaska Airlines RNAV program.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the other half of the equation, and getting those aircraft in here now, our staff has been working very closely with Alaska Airlines on some new instrument approaches. These are approaches that we think are going to benefit the airport, benefit Alaska, for both safety and noise reasons. And with that, I'll let Mike Williams give the report.
Thank you, Barry. I don't have flip charts like Alan, but I'll do my best to walk you through this. First, I want to introduce Mark Henniger in the back in the blue shirt, who is a technical pilot with Alaska Airlines, and I've really enjoyed working with Mark over the last 3 or 4 months. We've been kind of talking about this, and he's been educating a non-pilot in how all this high-tech stuff works. So those of you who are pilots, I ask for your patience with me this morning. I'm a little uneducated. Thank you. I appreciate that, Robert. And but we'll go through it. I'll do my best to make it as simple as possible. And Mark is here if we have any technical questions. But again, as Barry said, this is just another step in Alaska Airlines' commitment to this market, not only to serve it with passengers, but to serve it to the highest possible level of safety. And again, I've really enjoyed working with Mark on this. First off, we're all pretty aware that over time this airport has struggled at times during the winter with bad weather, and we've become the biggest bus stop east of Ontario. And how we do that, and instrument landing systems have been talked about, and microwave landing systems, and now they're on to the next generation technology with the FAA. and on and on and on, and it's always kind of been out there. The other part, in addition just to the revenue loss and the traffic disruptions to our customers, and that is that this airport is a challenging airport for flight crews to operate in and out of. We're surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, and it's a challenge for the flight crews, especially at night. So Alaska has done a lot of work in Alaska to create some really unique approaches, I guess is the best word, Mark, to Juneau and some other places. Mark showed me some footage that sounds better than E-rides at Disneyland, frankly, but they have been very creative in taking really the equipment that they have on board their aircraft, which is really extremely state-of-the-art and as new as they can get and as high-tech as they can get. And by utilizing the equipment on board the aircraft, they've been able to design these approaches in Alaska. And again, they're now making this commitment to our market to provide that same level of commitment. The handout I passed out to you is part of the packet that Alaska submitted to the FAA for the approval of these approaches. And what it shows is the kind of big conglomeration of lines. The gray lines are flight tracks for Alaska over the past year. I believe it's August 02 to 03, if I remember right. And the dark lines shown on top are the 2 new approaches, correct, Mark? Okay. And so you can see there's not a lot of difference in how they operate, but there is a little bit of difference. Alaska did work when they were laying these out to try and keep the approaches over unoccupied desert areas to the greatest extent possible, which we very much appreciate. First off, the approaches, if they are approved by the FAA, they will be conditional with 2 things. They are subject to traffic permitting, so that if Alaska requests to fly the approach from the local FAA tower, they will have to get the permission to do that, and they are for Alaska Airlines only. They're not for any other carriers, they're strictly for Alaska to use. This first map here we'll look at, this is the approach as it's designed to come in and land on 3-1 left, which you would be flying towards us. Up here in this part of the top of the map is what's called Moron Intersection. I didn't name it. It's a intersection, airway, navigation fix, and that really becomes the starting point for the aircraft when they're approaching into the valley. And basically at this point, utilizing the flight management system on board the aircraft, it's all programmed in. The flight crew merely executes that approach through the flight management system, and then it just simply flies this approach, this corridor. And it comes down here. This is roughly right over Interstate 10, pretty close. And then it's going to make this turn and come in here and land at the airport. If you look in your packet, the handout sheets that are attached are a basic representation of the chart for the approach that if it's approved would go in the Alaska flight manuals. And if you'll notice across the bottom of the approach, it has kind of a profile view with fixed waypoints, and it'll tell you the altitude of the aircraft and the distance of the aircraft is approximately from the end of the runway. So you can see, for example, point 42 is, I'm sure I find it here. My eyes aren't what they used to be. Because I'm using the wrong chart, so that's why.
Upside down chart.
Yeah, I'm backwards. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, point 22, which should be this one right here, right?
42.
Yeah, look on the one that says 3-1 left. It's, I know they both look kind of the same, but you'll see, and if we look, for example, we'll find what you're going to find on the map.
Point 20 is more on.
Here, yeah, here's point 21. So if you take this is where they are in reference to what point. Which 20? I mean, they don't match up for some reason. No, Mark's had a typo, right, Mark?
Well, actually, if I may.
Yeah, please.
This approach, what you have, the big pictures you have were preliminary designs, didn't have intersection names on them. because every point on an approach is named with a 5-letter name, and that's what we use to identify the point in our flight management system. So what you're seeing here is preliminary maps that we sent down to Mike and his staff for review while we were getting the rest of the waypoint names from the FAA. So what you see in front of you, I believe, is probably one iteration previous to what the FAA is seeing right now, but the approach design and track are identical. So,
Great, thank you.
So they'll have names like moron, idiot, not too good, right?
well, actually, you know, moron and pilot are often used as redundant, but that was all the other good name for taking. So,
I'm sure glad you said that.
I just wanted to be into the punch.
You're there,
Anyway, but that's the basic representation for the 31 approach. Switch over here to the other side. The 1-3 approach, which would be coming towards me again, if they pick up down here at Thermal, basically, you know, they're going to end up coming and they'll do a turn and land this way. Now again, most of the traffic comes from the north, so if we start up here at Moron intersection, the flight track comes down again roughly over Interstate 10. They'll make a turn and go up this way and come circle back for the landing on 1-3 right. That really is the high points of it. Mark, did you want to add anything? And again, we're here for questions if you have them, and Mark will bail me out.
No problem. Yeah, I am available for any questions you might have as they come up, but a couple of clarifications. Alaska Airlines is the only airline that can fly these because these are not FAA designed approaches. When Alaska Airlines was faced with basically trying to maintain our schedule in Southeast Alaska 6, 7, 10 years ago, we've been doing this for decades, I'm sure Chuck's aware. It's impossible because you go to a place like Juneau, what you do is you fly 150 people 2 hours north into Alaska. You try an approach, you try another approach, you try another approach, you maybe try a fourth approach, you miss all 4 times, you go back to Seattle, and now you've got 150 angry passengers, 5 hours of airplane time with nothing to show for it. Plus, I would point out the capital of Alaska is in Juneau, which means you've got the governor on board, all the state legislature, and so not that there's any political pressure anywhere, but I would point that out. So Alaska developed our own approaches because it was a very similar situation to Palm Springs. Palm Springs has one non-precision approach that's based on the thermal radio navigational aid, which is 20 miles away. The minimums are roughly 2,000 feet above the ground. It's fine for light problems, you know, medium weather, but anytime the weather goes down significantly, you're just out of luck. And as Mike has pointed out, he doesn't enjoy being the world's largest bus station when that happens. Similar situation in Juneau. We brought the minimums there down from 3,000 feet vertical above the field and 7 miles visibility to 337 feet and a half a mile. Plus, we brought an approach down a fjord where there had been no approach before. So we developed this technology basically because we had to. The FAA is still years behind us. They are starting to catch up, and that is why the Alaska Airlines has produced this approach as opposed to the FAA. Palm Springs represents our second foray into the lower 48. We have approached into several cities in Alaska, and to be quite honest, it is the only way to get in Alaska. I've heard the mention of an instrument landing system here. Basically, an instrument landing system is a precision approach that provides lateral, meaning left and right, and vertical, up and down guidance that puts you basically on an exact track down the road towards the runway. It has a lot of limitations based on terrain. That's why you can't have one effectively here in Palm Springs. What we have developed for you is almost that exact type of an approach to those same types of minimums, except ours has the ability to go around corners. And when it has the ability to go around corners, things like mountains and terrain become not inconsequential, but it's something we frankly just go around. It's not a problem anymore. So I just wanted to point that out. In Chuck's defense, I would say Continental is probably the next airline that will be doing this. We have offered to share our technology with all the other airlines. In fact, we've had Continental Airlines, some of their technical group in our shop, sort of discussing how we do this, because frankly, most other airlines are not only not trained to do this, but they're not equipped. They don't have the equipment to do it. So even if we just copied everything, tossed it over to American tomorrow, they couldn't fly it. So that's just a little bit of background. The big constraints on an approach here, and why you see the large tracks you see, is because of the terrain. We're required to be at 14,000 feet over Moron intersection. That is very close to the airport, and if any of you have flown in here before, I'm sure you've had any variety of entertaining approaches that usually involve going like this. So it's
Slam dunk approach.
Exactly, a slam dunk approach, and depending on what carrier you're on, they have different ways of doing it. You can see just from looking at our own radar tracks that our pilots, it's just a matter of how fast you can get down, pilot technique, where there's turbulence in the valley, it just depends. Let's see. Oh, and also you have to avoid the terrain while you're going down. I thought that's an important point that shouldn't be forgotten. Let's see. The last thing is the minimums. The minimums on this approach will go from basically, I think it's 1,800 and change on the VOR approach to 250 feet above the ground. That is where the minimums will go on this approach. We've submitted it just before the Christmas holiday. Knowing how the FAA operates, it could take a while. I would point out the tower and TRACON. I started my recon trips down here over a year and a half ago. I spoke with Palm Springs, the tower manager, went to the radar facility. So this has been developed in complete concurrence with the air traffic control folks here. They know what's going on. They support it. They're all for it. And that's kind of the gist of it. We've shown you the tracks here. And the main reason that this approach is, that we want this approach to exist at Palm Springs are our pilots asked for it. During the day it's not a big deal, but at night, especially if you don't come into Palm Springs that often, it can be a very intimidating approach. I learned to fly in Orange County. I've lived here all my life. I'm totally familiar with Palm Springs, but you have some folks who haven't been in here, and it's one of those things where you know the mountain's out there, you just can't see it. And that is very disturbing to some folks. We do have all the advanced equipment. We have ground proximity warning systems. We have all sorts of things, terrain mapping, radar. So this is Palm Springs, not to make it inconsequential, but it's an easy one for us compared to where we go normally. But it's just a way for us to leverage the technology, and Palm Springs is the first place we're doing that here in the lower 48. I think that's kind of it. The other reason, obviously, is safety, but our pilots wanted it for the night visual approaches that occur in the valley here when they're not familiar, and for safety, and obviously to get lower minimums, significantly lower minimums here, to improve the service of Palm Springs. Because we don't like diverting, it's no fun. If you've watched CNN, you've watched what a mess it's made of the Alaska Airlines system in the last 24 hours in Seattle. I was discussing with Mike, and maybe spending some extended time here. So, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the chairman, distinguished members, guests.
Question, I'm a retired American captain.
Oh, okay.
And American has been doing RNAV approaches into cities in Colorado, of course, Colorado, South America.
Yeah.
Those crews are specifically trained.
Yes.
Simulator trained. They cannot go, a crew cannot go in there unless they've been in the simulator to do those.
You're talking about Eagle.
Is this the same thing as Alaska?
Yeah.
Those crews are only be designated if they've been simulator trained?
Yes. When you're referring to American, you're talking about a few places in South America. You're talking about Eagle, Colorado. I'm familiar with that. At Alaska Airlines, I should point out that this will not apply to the MD-80s. We're phasing those out slowly. This will only apply to the 737s. And everybody who flies a 737 for Alaska Airlines is trained in these approaches. Palm Springs itself will not require specific training, but for example, Juneau and Southeast Alaska do require some specific training, and that is slowly being removed. We've had almost 8 years experience with this now, and we've completed thousands of approaches, and we've had over 1,000 what we term saves, which are airplanes that would have had to divert away from Juneau or Sitka or wherever it was they were going and go somewhere else if we had this type of approach. The answer to the question is yes, we get specific training in the simulator. It will not be necessarily specific to Palm Springs, but we do get recurrent training in how to fly these types of approaches in very challenging terrain.
Robert. Seems to me there are a number of published RNAV approaches at airports around the country. What is about yours that's unique that prevents Larry from flying it in his 180?
Well,
82, I'm sorry.
That's a simple question with a very complicated answer. The RNAV approaches that the FAA puts together typically at this point are a sort of a generic, we're going to make one approach design fit every facility. So for starters, the minimums would most likely be significantly higher. They don't always have a vertical component to them. They're getting into that, but they're not completely into that. They're very slow. The FAA, if you had a subscription to JEPS, as Chuck would know, the number of approach charts that we're being forced to carry now are growing exponentially because the FAA is putting out RNAV approaches it's just amazing. They're coming out left and right. However, the FAA has limited resources, and so they're only putting them out for certain cities. And I'm sure that there will be one and several for every airport in the valley here at some point. But Alaska Airlines, that would be the difference between a 25-inch television on your counter and a home theater system. We have the capabilities with terrain mapping radar, ground procs, and a variety of other required equipment that we already have to have for Southeast Alaska that allows us to design an approach to much lower minimums. An RNAV approach designed by the government would have lower minimums than your current VOR approach, but not to this extent.
You need the vertical component with your onboard flight management system together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the FAA is putting together approaches like that. It's coming. It's just coming really slowly. So.
Larry?
I'm really pleased, and I congratulate you and Alaskan Airlines for taking the initiative to do this, because as you say, if you waited for the FAA, we'd be waiting a long time to do it. Would Alaskan Airlines pilots be required to fly this, say, at night, or is this still the pilot's discretion according to the weather conditions?
It'll be pilot's discretion, as the pilots in here know. It's almost impossible to tell a pilot what to do. I am a pilot, so I can say that. Hence the moron representation out there. No, I think we will encourage our pilots to fly it. And one of the advantages that this particular approach, actually both these approaches have, is they are basically defined tracks over the ground. There will be a slight bit of latitude, but nothing like what you're seeing in the radar handout there. Depending on the type of fix on each approach, it's either a flyover or one that you can fly by, and that'll mean for a very slight variation. But when we talk about the approaches here, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner where it says RNP 0.11, that defines the lateral track of the approach, and that means that in order to fly that approach, the airplane has to have performance. That's what RNP stands for, required navigational performance, of 0.11, and we're referring to nautical miles. That's 660 feet. And that means that 99% of the time that airplane is going to be within that particular avenue of airspace. Compared to a normal ground-based approach, that's extremely tight tolerances. And we typically find that our airplanes are generally within tens of feet because we have a way of monitoring that in the airplane. So this is something where there won't be if you happen to live under the approach course from Thermal, where you see the approaches kind of, a Cessna's over here one day, a Mooney's over here another day, a Bananas over here. You won't see that. If an airplane's flying this approach, he'll be right there every day.
They're also coupled up there too, right?
The company, Alaska Airlines, has a requirement that if we do an approach that is below RMP 0.30, we are required to be coupled to the autopilot for the length of the approach. If it's 0.30 or above, we can hand fly. And actually Boeing says, who's the manufacturer, they say you can hand fly down to 0.11. So it's just a company restriction, and I think that'll probably end up going away here in the future. But normally these will be autopilot coupled. And basically it's just, you let the computer fly the entire approach, including speeds. It's very slick. I mean, it basically makes it, I hate to say it. I was going to say pilot-proof, but so it's a very user-friendly approach for both folks on the ground. It's very nice for people in the back. It'll be a much more comfortable ride. It's designed to take you as far away from turbulence as possible, maintain as much clearance from the terrain as possible, and provide a nice, gentle flight path all the way to the airport, regardless of which runway is being used, because there's one to each runway.
Any more questions? If not, I think we'll move on. Thank you, Mark.
You bet. Thank you.
Mike, Mark.
Thanks, Mike.
I think think it forebodes of great things to come. We don't have a lot of weather days, but we have a lot of guys that fly in here who haven't flown in here, and it's just touchy when you haven't been somewhere without some sort of precision work. Most airline people are used to having an ILS to look at all the way down. We don't have that, and it gets a little dicey, especially for new crews. The next item is the Chihuly dedication.
Mr. Chairman, this is one I know that you're quite interested in, being involved in helping us get these nice public art pieces. Also, we have Kathy Van Horn, who's with our Public Arts Administration and Economic Development, here to answer any detailed questions. But we are hoping to have a dedication ceremony for the Chihuly art pieces in the Sonny Bono Concourse. It's tentatively scheduled for February 23rd between 4:45 and 6:45. We will have the unveiling, and then we'll have a reception afterwards. We've been working closely with the Transportation Security Administration to set up some of the security guidelines, very similar in terms of how we organize that for the Sonny Bono Concourse dedication, meaning that only invited guests who are on the invitation list will be able to come through the security checkpoint and go into the sterile area. We will have to, of course, be with them the entire time, and they will also be counted as they exit as well. But we're excited about this. This is a tentative date, and we are hoping to have more details. Kathy, do you have any more details at this point? I know you're meeting with the Arts Commission to finalize everything.
Good morning. No. One of the things we're trying to finalize is the design of the sponsor plaque. We are designing a plaque to honor all the people that donated more than $1,000, and it's quite a few people. So it's a bit of a challenge because we were initially going to have a plaque on each pillar where the Chihulys are sitting right now. But given all of that and reviewing a number of options, we are back to one single plaque in a standalone position. So we hope to have a final decision by the end of this week. We actually have a commission meeting, a Public Arts Commission meeting Friday, and we hope to finalize that, and then we'll confirm the date and the time. The time frame is a little odd only because we want to capture both the daytime and the evening light to best highlight the Chihulys because they are beautiful in both settings.
Thank you, Kathy.
Excuse me, I assume it's February 23rd, 2004.
Yes.
Correct. Good catch.
I would encourage commissioners to go out and look at the new Chihulys, even the new mountings. They are very special. I knew nothing about Chihuly 2 years ago, and I guess I know something now. People walk in that, get off those flights, and they look and they say, "Oh my gosh, that's a Chihuly." Just look at it. There's 4 of them. It's a very special thing, and it looks very nice out there. And I would encourage you to go out and look at them now, but to come to the dedication also. A lot of people in the valley, the whole valley, have contributed a lot of money to bring those here. Those were they don't come free, true, and we contribute a lot of money and effort to get them here. So I think it's another reflection of how citizens want to see their valley a special place.
Question?
Any other guests?
It says commissioners will get invitations. There'll be a student family, some of whom don't have ID cards. Like you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He wondered if his family could come. It's in the thing.
Was that a big family?
It'll have to be an invited person. They'll have to be on the invitation list.
Why don't you tell Marjorie and we can put names on this if you want to bring your spouse or other or.
She hasn't got any.
If you have a family member you'd like to bring.
A 3-year-old doesn't have an ID card.
Is there a limit on the number?
And she's a bit of a terrorist.
We probably want to try to limit it to maybe 1 to 2 invited guests for the commission because we're already going to have quite a few additional members that will be coming from the sponsors.
So Bill, don't fly in 12 people again, okay?
Well, if they fly in, they're okay. They got
Well, yeah, if you fly them in, they'll have
Just
tickets.
linger in the concourse.
Okay, any other comments? If not, we'll move on. Next item is the updates. I believe, I'm going to schedule, there we go, updates. construction and so forth, Barry?
I'll let Mike talk toward construction.
We're, as we all know, pretty much kind of wound down on the construction side, at least for this year. The last remaining item that is out there is the metal canopy that goes up out behind the baggage makeup area. That's part of the explosive detection system work. And we're dealing with the plan check approval maze right now. So we're working our way through that. The vehicle inspection plaza continues to work well. After a lot of pleading, begging, and even threatening, I finally got Bird Air back on site today, so hopefully the mast will be flying above the building within the next week to two, so we can finally get the roof fixed and finished up. We're just still working through some cleanup items on the roadway and things like that. The rest of the stuff, the EDS continues to function well. TSA's offices are also continuing to function well.
Do you routinely test the pop-up things?
Yeah, we actually tested them just a couple weeks ago when the change level from code to orange came out. We did test them. It's been a little bit of a logistical problem this time of year, trying to find the right time of day when we don't accidentally launch a car. So, but yeah, we do test them. They work. We continue to work.
Fireworks work also when you...
Unfortunately, the fireworks got cut in the last budget round. So.
Yes, Larry?
I was wondering if there's been some items in the press when you first opened the new road system. Are people getting pretty familiar with it now? Are the conflicts dying down, or what's your assessment?
It's building, but we still probably at least once a day have a person who goes through the plaza and makes a U-turn trying to go out against traffic like it used to be. And you know, we've got extra signage up telling people that it's airport traffic only. We're out there, we're catching them as many as we can. We don't catch them all, but it's getting better. But can I tell you it's completely gone away? No, it hasn't.
No, I understand that. Well, this is the first time I drove into the airport since everything was in place. And I want to tell you that bar that advertises 6'6", that's impressive. I drove slowly under that and I still flinched. I still ducked when
Were you in your Corvette?
You may have to let the air out of your tires.
Yeah, I pulled into the parking this morning and there's a minivan with a guy and kids screaming at him, looking out the window. His wife is out there saying, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. And he finally got through, and then he's looking out to make sure it doesn't hit it. So anyway, they're concerned about it, obviously.
Yeah, it is intimidating, and I'll admit that is by design. We need
make
it
it
to be
6'7" maybe.
Has anyone been wedged in there yet?
No, I think don't believe so. I think we've had a couple people scrape the paint, but I don't think anybody's actually gotten wedged in.
Thanks, Mike, appreciate it. Just a quick question, are we still on track to try and get a little design work done on the front of the building? Is that?
Yes, one of the items that I wanted to get done at least before Alan's departure was to hold one design session with the design team on the Central Plaza, which we did. Was the 11th of December, actually. We have another design meeting scheduled this week with the design team. I will probably be going into the architect's office next week. We are hopeful to meet with the Airline Affairs Committee on the 22nd of the month. The real big focus right now is when the curb gets moved farther away from the building is the flow of passengers and baggage. And we don't want to make any decisions in a vacuum. We desperately need the airline's input on that whole process and the SkyCap service provider. And so there's a big element there. I'm hopeful that sometime in February, when Mr. Walsh gets here, that we'll be able to convene the special committee that we used through the other two projects, which would be the Airport Commission, the two members from the Planning Commission, and Councilmember Chris Mills to go through the drawings and begin that. But we are moving forward, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that and keep moving